Just a couple of announcements before we get started. A few reminders. Please silence your cell phone. If you have a question after the presser, you can approach the podium. This is for the media, of course. State your name and what station or newspaper that you are representing. You will be allowed 2 questions today and only related to the subject matter that we are presenting today. So let's get started with the mayor of the great city of Detroit, Mayor Mike Duggan.
All right. Good afternoon. Today is the annual report card day for the law enforcement leadership in Detroit and the state of Michigan. And I'm really pleased to say it was a remarkable year in 2023. If you ask most Detroiters what they would most like to see changed in the city, they would say they'd want a reduction in the violent crime. The polls are remarkable. More than 70% of Detroiters think the city's headed the right direction. That's a rarity anywhere in America today. But you have one tragedy with a member of your family, and it wipes out all the good that's happening in the city. We look at the numbers this year, 57 fewer homicides than the year before. That's not a statistic. That's 57 human beings who are safe. 151 fewer shootings in Detroit in 2023, and the carjacking numbers are nothing short of remarkable. We had 3 carjackings a week in this city. As recently as 2015, when we started Project Greenlight, there were 10 a week. We have a ways to go, but what the folks you're going to hear from today have accomplished is remarkable. And across America, you're seeing violent crime coming down off of the COVID peaks. What is different in Detroit is we're not coming down off the COVID peaks. Our homicide numbers are below the pre-COVID levels. We had 261 homicides in 2018, which had been our lowest in a long time. With 252 last year, we had the fewest homicides in Detroit since 1966, the fewest carjackings since we've started to keep the statistics. This group here is creating what I believe is going to be long-term change in the safety of this city. And at the start of this year, everybody up here said we're going to reduce the gun violence. That was our goal. And if you look at the statistics, you can see how that strategy worked. Violent crime overall in the city was down about 1%. Property crimes were actually up about 5%. That's almost entirely due to larcenies and people bashing car windows and stealing from them. We're going to take care of that next year. We progressed from the point where you have a stray kid with a tire iron breaking a window to groups of 2 and 3 and 4 vehicles working together to do the smash and grabs, and DPD and the team are all over that. That number will change next year. But we started out this year saying we were going to reduce gun violence, and the record is remarkable. Of course, the men and women of the Detroit Police Department who are out there on the front lines every day, every single arrest of somebody with a gun is a potentially life-threatening situation, yet they've handled it so beautifully. We had 200 more police officers on the street this year. We'll have 100 more next year. But it's one thing to get more officers. It's another thing to have a department that deploys those officers in a way that reduces the gun violence, and that's what Chief White and DPD have done. We've been enormously fortunate to have Dawn Eisen as the U.S. Attorney. U.S. attorneys across this country have a primary mission, as most of them feel, in fighting white-collar crime and corruption. The most aggressive U.S. attorney in America at taking on gun violence is our U.S. attorney. I've been in the room when Attorney General Merrick Garland cited the leadership she's taken. She's taken that gun violence as a personal mission, and it has absolutely made a difference in the city of Detroit's numbers. And when we knew the court system, the county justice system wasn't working, it was County Executive Warren Evans, and I'm glad Brian Reinhardt's here today, who said, we're going to make the system work again. Got raises for the prosecutors, got raises for the sheriff, got resources to the courts. Prosecutor, sheriff did a great job. And I know I shouldn't single anybody out, but I got to tell you, Judge Patricia Frizard at the head of the circuit court, you had not that long ago 4,000 gun cases backlogged. which means 4,000 people accused of a felony had been arrested, had been charged, and were on the street 2 and 3 years awaiting trial. And when those 4,000 people were on the street with guns after they'd been arrested, a whole lot of other young folks who I've talked to said, I didn't want to carry a gun, but with all the others who are still out here, I felt like I had to for my safety. And that became a cycle that fed on itself, that every interaction turned into a fight between two people who were carrying. But when you look at what the judges at Third Circuit, the judges at 36th District Court have done in reducing that docket, we've got the system working again. And to our state police partners, our other federal partners, our community partners, they've all been great. We know what we got to do in 2024. A lot of cities in this country have seen their crime rates go up and down. What we have to do is prove in 2024 we can lower it again. And we're just getting started on things like the Community Violence Initiative and in a number of other programs, that what we want to do is build on the success and bring the violence down again next year. That's what we're going to set out to do. And Chief White is already rolling out the plans for 2024. We're putting more police officers on the street. We've got more prevention initiatives than we've ever seen. And I just can't tell you what a joy it is to sit with the chief and his command officers, as nobody spends a lot of time patting themselves on the back of what they did last week. They're telling us, here's the strategy and what we're going to do to prevent the shootings next week. So at this point, I get to introduce somebody who I think the rest of the country is now starting to agree with my assessment. The finest police chief in America, James White.
Well, good afternoon, everybody, and certainly thank you for being here. There's going to be a common theme of this press conference. It's going to be a little bit different than the ones that we've done in the past. I've been privileged to be police chief now for 2.5 years, 28 years with the police department, and 12 of those years spent as an assistant chief. I participated in a lot of these briefings on crime. Never prouder than today. And so the theme today will be thank you. Thank you to our partners. Thank you to our command team. Thank you to the best police department in the country for getting us where we are today. We've got a heavy lift, and we got to keep it going. But I just want to start with, if you take nothing else from today, these two words I want you to carry with you. Thank you. Thank you from our community. Thank you from our citizens. You're going to hear a lot of statistics in a few minutes. But these are bodies. These are people. These are lives. This is trauma that didn't happen. When you can save a life, you can save a family. And so today is about how we've done that. But we're certainly not patting ourselves on the back. I think we all agree that it is entirely too violent in our communities. We're having too many kids make their way to guns and put those guns in wrong hands, shoot themselves, shoot others. So we got a lot of work to do. So this is not a victory celebration. This is really doubling down on the work that we are all going to do. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your commitment to this police department and city. Certainly those raises show that and helped us get to where we are. And our city council, a great partner in the U.S. Attorney, Don Eisen, who you'll hear from a little while later. Our FBI, Zach Gibson, Jimmy Deere, so glad that you're back in the fold. Very happy to see you. Our SAC, Orville Green, and many, many others that you'll be hearing from later on. Again, these are historic numbers. And our officers, our NPOs are in the room, many of them. If you just raise your hand, I just want everybody to put a face with the hand. Thank you for what you do. This partnership that is on display today is incredible. It's never worked as well as it is working right now. We are certainly poised for future success. Doesn't hurt having a mayor who's a former prosecutor who understands crime and can help us navigate all the really critical issues regarding crime. And when you sit in those meetings that the mayor talked about and you're strategizing about what we're going to do next, having a former prosecutor in that seat, the conversation is focused on what we're going to do to deter crime, reduce crime, and certainly if we have to make arresting the right people for the crimes. You're going to hear from several others today, but before I get into that, I want to thank my command team. The deployment strategies, the work that they've put in is incredible. I talked about our neighborhood police officers, our unions, our DPOA, our DPCOA, our DPLSA, which are lieutenants and sergeants. I want to thank our city council. I see our city council president, Mary Sheffield, is here. Council member Fred Durhall is here. Thank you. Unanimous support of the raises for our officers. Thank you very much. I think that deserves an applause. I also want to thank one of my former partners, Assistant Chief Dave LaValle, in the deployment and development of our strategy, working with the team. Dave is a stat person, a data-driven person, and a taskmaster. So thank you, Dave, for your support. Members of our Citizen Radio Patrol, Bishop Edgar Van, and all of our community ambassadors, including Malik Shabazz, who is always on the ground with us. He's fighting some health challenges right now, but we know if there's anyone that can win that battle, it's Malik Shabazz. I want to thank him. To Ferry Brent and Dura Woods, want to thank them. This is about our layered approach. It includes having more than 200 police officers back on the street, 60 of which came back to our department from other departments, due large part to the raises. I mean, we know at the end of the day, the officers love being here. They love the opportunities and they love the community, but the economics is why we lost some of our officers. So we're very happy to have them back. We're also looking at having an additional 100 officers on the street by the end of next year. So we're very, very happy about that. But this work is not done. We talked about our 12-point plan earlier this year. After we went into our mid-summer deployment, we were able to address a number of issues that had came up early spring. Just so you all know, when we implemented our strategy of 12-point plan last year, we started off early April. We do a spring deployment. After that first week in the spring, we looked at that and we determined that we were going to go right into our midsummer deployment. And it wasn't necessarily just because of what we saw in that one weekend downtown Detroit, but what we were seeing was crowds all around the city of Detroit. We were seeing record numbers of people using our parks. We had a relatively early spring, people using our parks, people enjoying our city, and we knew that we had to go to our midsummer deployment immediately. I will tell you, this year, we're not going to wait for an action to do that. We will be implementing our new spring deployment, which mirrors our midsummer deployment. So we're super excited about that. I do want to get into the slides very quickly. Dana, would you? As you see with this first slide, 252 homicides in 2023, which is the lowest since 1966, and certainly it's below the pre-COVID low of 261 in 2018. Next slide. The dropped 16% from 2022 and 31% since 2020. And when you look again at the numbers, I know the numbers mean nothing, but if you can just imagine that these are, number one, these are people, and these are non-fatal shootings. Non-fatal shootings are basically failed homicides. So you've got 804 people. If you look at just 10% of those resulting in homicides, you see where our homicide number would be. So again, great work by the officers, great work by our partnership, and we're going to need that and more going forward. Next slide. Looking at our carjacking numbers, and again, 33% from 2022 and a 66% drop since 2015, and this was before Project Greenlight. So to go from where we were with 2 or 3 carjackings a day in some instances and to where we are now is certainly historic at a 167 carjacking number for the entire year of 2023. Again, ideally, you don't want 167 people carjacked in your city, but certainly this tells us that we are on the right track. And how we got there is our partnerships, which we'll be hearing from with the Wayne County Sheriff, the Michigan State Police, some of the work that we're doing in the Real-Time Crime Center and the Greenlight Project. Next slide. I won't even attempt to read this one, but these numbers not looking there anyway. The offense types, as you see statistically across the board, the homicide number, which was the one that really jumps off the page with close to a 19% reduction. And you look at the sexual assaults, which is very important. And with the lean system or the lens system being really prominent in our department, and what that is, it gives us an opportunity to address those cases that would sometimes go unaddressed. So we did see a slight uptick initially at the launch of our lens program But then, as you can see, that number stabilized. We had a lot of victims who weren't getting the services that they needed. We were able to reach out to, get those reports filed, make a number of arrests, and that number is started to decline. And this was up significantly early part of last year. Our aggravated assault numbers, as you can see, we're going to be working very hard on those going forward. Just a very slight uptick. And then our robbery numbers, we're not satisfied with that number. We have a lot of work to do there, but they're still showing a downturn. But we have work to do. And when we look at these numbers, the mayor talked about the pre-COVID numbers. 2021, 2020 in particular was an anomaly year. The city did not perform like the city performed in previous years because of the impact of COVID. So you had people who weren't moving in the normal course of their day. You had people that were at home throughout the day. You didn't have the interaction with the community and the events and things such as that. So when you see that these numbers are lower than our pre-COVID numbers, again, that tells us that our strategy and our processes are working. Next slide. So what we got here then overall is the 3,655 investigative leads with NIBIN. And let's talk very quickly about what NIBIN is. So NIBIN gives us the opportunity, it's a federal program that gives us the opportunity to analyze rounds recovered at scenes. And I won't spend a lot of time on that, but just know that this comes out of our ShotSpotter program, where we recover evidence and we're able to use that evidence to find those who have victimized our city. We've recovered 5,512 casings that we've entered into NIBIN last year. 39 square miles of ShotSpotter has helped us. ShotSpotter is an incredible tool that is used responsibly in our community. We had identified that there were a number of people who didn't have confidence in calling 911 when they heard gunfire. In fact, over 80% initially were not calling 911 when they heard gunfire. We don't want a community that's desensitized to gunfire. Gunfire means someone is either attempting to hurt someone or themselves. And so to have this tool where we can respond regardless of a 911 call has been invaluable. And as a result, we've made 386 arrests from those ShotSpotter notifications. There's been a number of arrests where we've arrived at the scene and the person is escaping from committing a violent act of either murder in it or its attempt. And then, of course, there's been 6,498 guns recovered. And we're currently now looking at 903 Project Greenlight Detroit locations. So I'm not going to take up all the time talking about stats. I do want to introduce at this time the U.S. Attorney, Dawn Eisen. And again, as she comes forward, I just want to thank you, ma'am, for your partnership and your work in our city. Thank you.
In addition, may we have FBI SAC Shay Gibson join, as well as ATF SAC James Deere, DEA SAC Orville Green, and Homeland Security Investigations Detroit Deputy SAC Jared Murphy.
All the alphabet soup of the federal government is up here. We all share the same goal, and that is achieving peace in the communities and neighborhoods in the city of Detroit, and for all of us to take a part in that. And what we saw this year was all of us taking a part in that. I don't take any credit for it being one singular thing. If I do anything, I hope it's engaging other people to come together to do the work. And it seems like we have achieved some results, but we're just getting started. We still have a lot more work to do. There are way too many people still suffering from violence, way too many people and families affected by it. And so I am thrilled today to come together with so many people working to achieve this goal of achieving peace in the neighborhoods of Detroit. And we're going to talk a little bit about what we did collectively as a team, as one Detroit, to do just that. And we start out with, we came together to address gun violence in a new way. We committed to balancing enforcement work with work in the community to prevent violent crime from happening, and work with men and women returning from prison to help reduce them or help them not to return to prison. And today I will report out on some of those efforts and results. But before I do, I just want you to know we still have work to do. We still have work to do, but I feel so confident in the commitment that we have now to do that work. And in part, that is because the community has been so engaged in this effort in a way that I don't really think we have ever seen before. And I really think the community, the people most affected by it, should get a hand in here today, right now. Can you go back, Ms. Dana, to the first federal partnerships? There you go. So before we actually launched One Detroit officially, I just want you to know that for the last 2.5 years, federal prosecutors have been in several precincts in Detroit, 5 precincts in Detroit, triaging cases to go after the drivers of violence, determining who are the worst of the worst, and bringing them to federal court so that they can suffer more serious consequences. And we've been working with the Wayne County Prosecutor's Office to do that. And so we have not only enforcement prosecutors from my office working to do that, but we also have community prosecutors working to do that as well. And so over the course of the last year, we've arrested 160 on there. Individuals have been charged federally, 400 felony arrests, 1,200 illegal guns taken off of the streets, and 450 search warrants. Let me break some of that down for you. That includes the vice lords that we charged federally, where 40 defendants were presented on a case. The Purple Heart vets, 8 of them charged, 6 in a RICO indictment. We have the kidnapping, where 6 charged individuals were charged as individuals. We're also charged. We have the Emeritus boys also charged. And so then in addition to that, we have our summer enforcement initiative. And then also what I'm going to talk about in just a few minutes about how we've been taking old cases and bringing them federally as well, so that people who are committing violence can't get away with what they think they can. And so our enforcement team, if you don't know, the One Detroit, next one. One Detroit is our coalition of community and law enforcement partners. And the way that it's different is that it's not your typical task force, if you will, or law enforcement group. It is comprised of not only law enforcement, but also people from the community and faith-based leadership and community-based leadership. And so we have 3 pillars, that is enforcement, prevention, and reentry. But then we have Bishop Van leading our faith-based efforts on our executive team. We have Black Family Development being our community-based organization. Ceasefire is our focus deterrence group is part of that, as well as we have community relations representation with Mr. Alvin Stokes, who's here also, the citywide community relations officer. And so we come together to bring all the subject matter experts in the room to determine not only what's the best enforcement, but what are the best strategies to help with prevention. And so we've been doing that in earnest in the last year. And let me talk a little bit about what we did when it came to enforcement. Our enforcement team relentlessly focused on their work on those who are driving violence. State and federal prosecutors worked together to develop a process to review shooting cases that were dismissed or denied because witnesses refused to cooperate. This teamwork allowed for shooters who thought that they had gotten away with it to be prosecuted for their illegal gun possessions in federal court. Cases like the one brought against Jason Foley, who was sentenced earlier this year. Foley was involved in a shooting into a home occupied by several adults and children. Officers recovered 31 .22 caliber casings and observed at least 20 gunshots in the target home. Foley was also involved in a second shooting where officers recovered 10 9mm casings that he had fired at a residence. In both shootings, the intended target was his girlfriend. Foley pleaded guilty to 2 counts of felon in possession, and he was sentenced to 96 months in federal prison, a driver of violence. Separately, we learned that officers of the Detroit Police Department often knew who were the shooters in their precinct. And so we learned that by assigning AUSAs, federal prosecutors, to precincts, prosecutors learned quickly about shooters in real time and could assess the cases for federal prosecution to quickly remove shooters from the street. An example of that is a shooter like Sean Hickman, the defendant in United States v. Hickman, who pleaded guilty to 1 count of felon in possession of a firearm after he was identified as a shooter by police officers in the 8th precinct. Hickman possessed a firearm while shooting at another individual multiple times outside of a convenience store in one of Detroit's most violent neighborhoods, the 8th precinct. He's scheduled to be sentenced in 2024. The enforcement team also, with the help of our federal partners, with NIBIN and all of our federal partners triaging cases there in the precinct, we use the data and objective information to identify those most likely involved in violence. Another one like Clifford Hussey, a multi-convicted felon with a history of violence and assaultive behavior. When he was again arrested with a gun, the team used a streamlined review that was triggered by data to immediately charge him in federal court, and he was sentenced to 33 months in federal prison. Oftentimes, if we can't get them for what they possibly should be charged with, murder or assaulting someone, we are using the Al Capone method, and that is we are going to try to remove these drivers of violence from the streets in the best way we can. And another example of the innovative ways that we're trying to do that in enforcement was in the last 12-month period, we charged 135 defendants with fraud-related offenses, and several of those defendants were involved in violent crime. They included defendants of the Purple Heart vets, and the Emeritus Boys are members of the example of that approach. They promised that the Purple Heart vets promoted themselves as soldiers in battle, engaging in violence on the streets of Detroit on behalf of the gang. Members also worked together to commit a significant amount of unemployment fraud. And so we charged them with that federally so that they can face those charges. So next slide. So as I mentioned, in addition to federal prosecutors being in the precinct and triaging cases and working together along with federal and DPD and other law enforcement partners to bring the drivers of violence to justice, we also have federal prosecutors who served as the community prosecutors in those same precincts, attending every community relations meeting at those precincts. We have one federal prosecutor who is so passionate about this work, and I do want to recognize my team, and I don't know where they are in the room. Wave your hands if you're in the room, my team, because they do the work. I do the engagement. I try to do the engagement, but they really do the work along with all of these other hardworking people from DPD and other law enforcement agencies. They really do the work. It's hopefully that we as the leaders can do the engagement and be committed, help people to stay committed to the work. And so we have several federal prosecutors at community meetings, and one is both the enforcement prosecutor and the community prosecutor. And then last but not least, y'all know I love my peaceniks. So then we had our summer enforcement strategy. It's the unified summer enforcement strategy. Again, identifying by the data the most violent places in the city of Detroit. And unfortunately, just like last year when we had our summer enforcement strategy, because all across the country, everywhere you go, violence spikes in the summer. Detroit is no different. But just like last year, it was still in the 8th and the 9th precinct. And so what we did this year, in addition to making it larger than it was last year, we started out with 2 sections last year. When I say last year, I mean 2021. But in 2022. In 2023, we expanded it to 3, and then we ended up expanding it all the way to both throughout the entirety of both precincts. And with that, we had our summer enforcement. And during that summer enforcement, we charged federally 22 individuals. And that was Glock switch was one, I know, an obliterated serial number. We also included people who had a meaningful connection to those hot spots, if you will, and they were doing something somewhere else. We've charged the felon in possession cases, the most violent, the most egregious individuals in federal court during that summer enforcement. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, one part of this strategy that's different from the rest, or what I'm used to doing, I've been a prosecutor for 20 years now, and I was a criminal defense attorney before that. I've been at this game for a while, is that we have included a big component of deterrence and prevention. And I couldn't be more proud of the work that we've been able to accomplish with some of our partners in that regard. And the chief mentioned some of those people, Daryl Woods and a number of other people, Force Detroit, and some of those community violence intervention people are out in these streets helping and trying to quell violence and do it in that way. It is no one thing. It is a collaboration, a collective effort of a whole bunch of people to do the work. And so the deterrence that we look for is engage directly with community members and communicate with those at the highest risk. So during the summer, the whole One Detroit Executive Committee signed a letter to individuals who were on federal probation, state probation, federal supervised release, which is the equivalent of kind of like parole once you get out. And that we sent them a letter warning them to put their guns down, but we also gave them an option. Come to this resource fair, come to these roundtables so that we can remove barriers for you because you've been convicted, and that you can become a productive citizen. Because for every person that we help not to recidivate makes the community safer, and we're doing our job, achieving our goal. And so we had 50 people at several round tables. In fact, we're continuing to do that. Actually, we had 2 even since the summer months of Memorial Day to Labor Day. And we not only had service providers there, we had our justice impacted people who could talk to them and tell them the real deal, engage in the real talk, but also help them with resources. We also invited their family members to come so that their family members can learn how to best support them. And so we were very pleased with the turnout, and we were very pleased with the engagement at those things. And so, and then, of course, next slide, please. And then, of course, there are the peaceniks. And I have to thank the mayor and my partner in crime on this one, Deputy Mayor Bettison. We walked the streets. We knocked on the doors trying to get the community engaged to come to these peaceniks. We're just not peace picnics, it was really a way to engage with the community in a non-enforcement way. But it was more than that. And that was providing resources. We had, next slide, please, over 5,000 people participated in the 2 peaceniks on the 8th and 9th precinct combined. We had over 35 service providers, Justice Jumpstart, Clean Slate, Secretary of State, Ceasefire, you see, is there. There's me, the mayor, and deputy mayor, and Mr. Stokes is there with his girl. I think that same baby is here today, isn't it? That's the baby. That's Austin right there. Mm-hmm. Yeah, then you can see all the service providers who were there, because it was more than just non-enforcement. Because if we can bring resources to people, give them an opportunity to help themselves and let them know that they are worthy and they deserve something better, they deserve to live in peace, then we're going to do that. We're going to put in effort to expose them to that as well. And so we were very excited about not only the participation, but the number of people. And I'm going to tell you, I saw some kids who were actually involved in or had been charged or at least investigated when it came to a break-in of a gun store, and they were there. One of our justice folks brought them there, and they were over at Jumpstart, and they were talking, and I talked to them a little bit about, get your life right. Get your life right. You deserve better than this. And I heard one of those individuals tell his group, he's like, do you have this? And he was listing all the criteria for the Jumpstart program. And he's like, well, you can get a job over here. And if I had any dream, that's exactly what I wanted to happen. Something like that, exposing them to resources so that they can see themselves in some other light other than engaging in crime and violent crime. And so that's just one of my little anecdotes. But I want to thank all the neighborhood police officers who walked the streets with... And the cadets, are any of my cadets in here from the academy, walked the streets with me and Deputy Mayor. We walked the streets for the peacenik, and then we had what we called a community huddle even after the summer enforcement ended, because we can stand up here and talk to you guys and spew these results, but the people most affected needed to hear them too. And so we went to those areas and did a press conference in those communities, and then we walked in the name of peace. And that's when we had our faith-based leadership with Bishop Van lead us in that, and Bishop Ellis was there, and Pastor Ellis and Bishop Harris and so many. And we walked the streets, and we went viral because we were shouting down the streets and people were taping us and making us viral. And so we will continue this in earnest. In addition to that, I talked about my neighborhood police officers, but thank you guys so much. You guys walked the streets. I really appreciate it. And you were engaged, and we know he asked you to do something that you don't normally do, but the fact that you did it and you did it enthusiastically just meant so much. And I know that it's made a difference. So thank you so much for that. Next slide. I'll finish up here in a minute, Chief. And so again, I already talked about this a little bit, but we were our other prong is reentry, and we've been doing a lot of work to just empower returning citizens, to remove barriers for them so that we can just help them to be productive as they come out. Next slide. So these are the actual results, and I know we deal with a lot of percentages, but I like to talk in numbers, and I know this because everybody counts. Every individual who was saved counts. Every family that's not affected by the trauma counts. And so we will continue to fight for every single individual so that they can live and live in peace. And we will continue to do that. So with during the summer enforcement in the entire precinct, there was a 17% reduction in homicides, meaning four people's lives were saved during that period. Non-fatal shootings, 16 people, and carjackings, 12 people were saved as a result. Everybody counts. But this is what, next slide, please, Ms. Dana. This is what's even more significant. As I told you, we use the data to identify the most violent areas. And what we did was, even within the hot spot of the 8th and 9th precinct, we did a micro hotspot in the most concentrated areas of violence in those 2 precincts. And what is remarkable is that the reduction is even larger in those most concentrated places. And it was a 45% reduction in those sections. 5 people's lives were saved, 15 people for non-fatal shootings. And again, 67% reduction, 6 offenses for that. Next slide, please. So what are our next steps? We are going to keep on pushing. We're going to keep on working. We're not going to stop. We are thrilled and excited and encouraged by these numbers, but there are still too many people who die in this city, or nearly die in this city, and we won't stop. We are going to have some town hall and public safeties. And I want to tell you that our partnership, I do want to say this before I sit down, the partnership is a true partnership in a tangible way. We have this executive team that includes the mayor and the chief and representation by the Michigan Department of Corrections. Where's Bill? Michigan Department of Corrections. She leads our reentry pillar, and she does an outstanding job. And then we also have the city that leads our prevention pillar, and that was, the peaceniks and all the other stuff that we're doing under the prevention side. And then our office leads the enforcement, but we're all on all of the pillars. But we have other individuals outside of my office lead the pillars, and so that we can have all the subject matter experts in there coming together to come up with effective strategies under each pillar. And so we will be having some town hall and public safety forums. We will continue this partnership with the Community Relations Council. Mr. Stokes has been a great partner for the last 2.5 years. I couldn't ask for a better community partner to work with us, and I know everybody here appreciates his engagement. The 8th and 9th precinct in particular, those Community Relations Councils are very engaged, and I attend them often because, again, we have been transparent about our work and trying to build legitimacy between law enforcement and the community. And it is because of that they have rallied behind us, and they are part of this team. They are One Detroit too. They are part of this team. And so we will continue to make them feel empowered in that way, that we're not foisting something on them, but rather they are part of this team, and they can help us and help themselves. All together we can do it. And so we'll be doing that, and we'll be preparing for the summer. And so my last statement is, we will take what we've learned and we will work to improve what we're doing. But I want to say the vast majority of people who want to live peacefully in this city, we got your back. We got your back. And to those who commit violence, those who shoot to solve problems, I want to say we're not going anywhere. We won't stop. We won't stop for a better, safer Detroit. Thank you. Peace.
Thank you, U.S. Attorney Eisen, Chief White, Mayor Duggan, for allowing me this opportunity to be here for this historic moment. Good afternoon. My name is Chevalier Gibson. I'm the special agent in charge of the FBI here in Detroit, which covers all of the state of Michigan. Thank you to everyone here for your continued selfless dedication to keeping our community safe. The FBI believes all Michigan residents deserve to live in a state free of violent crime. We remain steadfast in our commitment to public safety. I am privileged to be surrounded by those on my right and left, and those in the audience, and those who could not be here today, who have made a career in public service, particularly in law enforcement. The FBI is acutely aware of the diverse set of external threats we face in society today, including violent crime, the opioid epidemic, cyber threats, healthcare fraud, public corruption, and many other threats that threaten our community safety. Each of these threats require law enforcement to leverage our collective resources. By surging resources from the FBI and working in unison with our federal, state, and local partners through an array of task forces and community groups, we have experienced great success in tackling both violent crime and building successful partnerships. No member of the justice community works alone, and our work is far from over. The people in this room know that best. However, our partnerships are stronger than ever before, and I am committed to ensuring that that remains true. So again, in closing, thank you for your time, and we look forward to convening next year for more collaboration stories and a greater impact in how we highlighted making this city safer for Detroit. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jim Deere. I'm the SAC of the ATF Michigan. And I think there's a couple things that resonate with me with this press conference. And it's a great day for Detroit. Great day for the community members and a very, very great day for everyone who has been committed to gun violence and reducing gun violence in our community. We're almost at a point, or we are at a point, where people can walk down the streets of this place and feel safe. But there are things that are my takeaway here, things that resonate with me. Mr. Mayor, leadership matters. You've got one of the best police chiefs in the country. It matters. Madam U.S. Attorney, your leadership matters. You've brought together a collective group of type A personalities who not always get along. And we find one common purpose with One Detroit, and we move forward. We are committed to preventing the next victim of gun violence. That's what this is about. To the command staff, I interface with you all daily or weekly, and thank you for your efforts and your steadfast commitment to ATF and the men and women of ATF. ATF is, for the federal government, in essence, the gun police. And if you look at us, we are very committed to technology. Gun technology that identifies prolific shooters in the community. That's what we do on a daily basis. And all too often in politics and in business, decisions are made to divert funding from various places. I want to thank City Council and thank the mayor for resisting those urges and getting the men and women of Detroit Police Department what they need. They needed technology, they need people, and they've got it. And they've got your steadfast support. So I want to thank you, sir. Your actions, not very, very rarely in politics do you get to see the results of decisions made. This is results. Your decisions mattered. They saved lives. Technology matters. ShotSpotter matters. It was a huge investment on your all's part. That matters. NIBIN matters. NIBIN identifies folks who are contemplating murdering people, and we go get them. That's our jobs. With that, all I can say is to the men and women on this partnership, you have my heartfelt thanks. I look forward to working with you every day. Detroit is my home. I love Detroit, and we're going to make it safer. And for anybody who is contemplating picking up a gun and using it, we're coming. So don't do it.
Good afternoon. My name is Jared Murphy. I'm the Deputy Special Agent in charge for Homeland Security Investigations in Detroit. I'd like to congratulate Chief White, the Detroit Police Department, and our federal and state partners for a remarkable reduction in violent crime in Detroit this year. It's a result of your leadership, sir. HSI is proud to stand here with our federal, state, and local partners to celebrate this important milestone. HSI special agents leverage unique authorities and international capabilities to assist in reducing crime and improving safety in our communities. We're committed to continuing our work on important initiatives with Detroit Police and our partners to reduce auto theft and to reduce the international smuggling of weapons and narcotics into our communities. This is a good day for the city of Detroit, and with continued teamwork among the partners here today, more of them will be to come. Thank you.
Thank you to our U.S. Attorney Don Eisen and the federal partners. Now we will have a few remarks from Bishop Edgar Van.
This is Detroit. This is the spirit of Detroit. This is the heart of Detroit. And this is the power of partnership. I'm so delighted and excited to stand with political leadership, our mayor, city council, with our law enforcement leadership, our U.S. attorney, our tremendous chief of police, our Wayne County sheriff, and our federal partners, as we all stand together as one community, as one people. We made the demands. We had the initial news conference, and there were those that did not believe. They thought that there would just be another news conference, another article, another report. Today you see the results of our work and partnership. I'm grateful to be involved. I'm committed to being involved. This is my city, and the violence will continue to be reduced. Thank you.
So I know the media came to hear about the 57-year low in crime, 18% reduction in homicides, 252 homicides down 57, I'm sorry, from last year's 309, and that's less than the pre-COVID number. But you're getting a lot more. You're getting the impact that this will have on community. You're getting the next steps. And what we hope you walk away with is what this strategy means for us, for all of us. It's about those 700,000 people who chose to do a census, or just under 700,000 in our city, but the other 200 to 300,000 that I believe are here that didn't. It's about their safety. It's about those million people every year. We couldn't do it without you. We need this community, and this community is valued. And when you look at this partnership, what Jimmy Deere said, what our U.S. attorney has had to say, and her passion just exuded, and hopefully to you, as it does to me, every single time I talk to you. She talks like that, by the way. Every single time we talk, that's her energy. That's who she is. A daughter of our city, a Cass Tech graduate, and someone who's passionate about getting people who victimize those who live, work, and play in our city off the street. So thank you once again for this partnership. So it's not just the part one violent crimes that drive problems in our community. We know that. We know that we've got some other problems. We've got some nuisance problems. We've got drag racing and drifting. And oftentimes those situations are underreported when someone is hit by those vehicles. I hear from members of our community all the time saying we have to do something about the drifting and drag racing. We did a comprehensive strategy last year with the assistance of the Michigan State Police and other partners, led by Commander Decker, who I thought I saw in the room, and his team, and Captain May over at our commercial auto theft unit. And we've been able to really get ahead of it, and I appreciate their work, but we're not done. We've got these three-wheelers and some other things that we're going to do. Our federal partnerships has allowed us to put an airship up and monitor that. We're going to be doing a lot more of that. Michigan State Police has been invaluable in bringing their helicopters. We're going to be asking you for 2 more this year, sir, as you come forward to contemplate that. I'd like to invite the Colonel up at this time to say a few words of the Michigan State Police, and that is Colonel Grady. Thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Colonel James Grady. I am the director of the Michigan State Police. Still as shiny as a brand new penny. But I will tell you, I am looking forward to working with everyone in this room. So thank you, Chief, for inviting me today. The Michigan State Police has always had a long-standing relationship here in the city of Detroit, especially with the Detroit Police Department. And I'd like to take a quick moment to say that I've had that honor to be able to work with the wonderful men and women that serve here with the City of Detroit Police Department. With that, in addition to troopers patrolling the freeway in the city of Detroit, we have also provided investigative resources, the K-9 and lab resources to keep the city safe in an effort to solve and reduce violent crime. The Michigan State Police provides aviation support to our police partners as a force multiplier for our officers on the ground, which has the potential to be much safer for them in residence and on the road. There were about 500 hours of aviation hours logged in the city of Detroit alone during the year 2023, and we will continue those efforts in that partnership. Before I finish, I just want to say this. We are pleased that our partnership with the citizens of the city of Detroit, the Detroit Police Department, and our federal partners continue to help build a Michigan where everyone feels safe and secure. Thank you for your time.
So with 500 hours, Colonel, we got 32 felony arrests, 39 vehicles impounded, 6 stolen vehicles recovered, and 21 weapons recovered. So we could double up on all those with 1,000 hours. So thank you. All right. At this time, I want to bring up the Michigan Department of Corrections, Ms. Beverly Smith, and who is just absolutely amazing working with our officers, going out, doing our home checks, and has been a tremendous partner for us in this endeavor. Ms. Smith?
Thank you. Again, my name is Beverly Smith. I'm the Assistant Deputy Director for Department of Corrections Metropolitan Territory. MDOC is pleased with the progress that was made in 2023 to make our neighborhood and community safer. We appreciate the coordination with our law enforcement partners, and we remain committed to focusing on those that present the greatest risks to public safety. Thank you.
At this time, Sheriff Washington, Wayne County Sheriff, I'd like for you to come forward just to say a couple quick words. It's been a great partner for us. One of the things that we've identified is we've got a lot of folks that are out on tether. We've got a lot of folks that are out with pending felonies, and we'll talk a little bit about that before we close. And one of the tools that has been implemented has been very resourceful for us in identifying those who should not even be on the street, who are coming from or going to a crime, and which gives us certainly interest into why they're there. Sheriff Washington has been just a tremendous partner. I'd like you to come up and just share a few words, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Again, my name is Raphael Washington. I am with Wayne County Sheriff, and I'm here to talk about the collaborative effort that we've had with the between the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and the Detroit Police Department, and the wonderful results that we've had and that we'll continue to have working together because we're stronger together. So on behalf of the dedicated men and women of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office, I'm excited about the results of this partnership between the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and the Detroit Police Department. Whether it's our Scout program, our Sheriff's Community Outreach Urban Team program addressing drag racing, drifting, and other quality of life issues, or our shared electronic monitoring initiative, I couldn't be happier with the partnership we've had over the years. While we have launched several initiatives across the 43 cities and townships that have contributed to the significant reduction in crime, I'd like to share one that I am very proud of. That's the Violent Crime Reduction Initiative, which is an outgrowth of the Fugitive Apprehension Team, our FAST team, which was created 20 years ago and made up of the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and the Detroit Police Department and other law enforcement agencies. A key point to the success of this collaboration is that since its inception, we have focused on Tier 1 violent offenders and resolving gun crimes through the city of Detroit and Wayne County. Each year, collaborating agencies conduct several fugitive sweeps with an understanding that these individuals are committing many of the major crimes in Wayne County. Since 2019, the total number of arrests tops 3,646, with 3,367 of them being adults, 150 juveniles, and 129 homicide detainees, with 2023 being our best year, which we made nearly 1,000 arrests. As a result of this kind of work, I have the utmost confidence in this partnership, knowing that when a known felon or offender commits a violent felony in our jurisdiction, the Violent Crime Reduction Initiative Task Force will respond and apprehend them. To that end, and as far as I know, this partnership is the most successful fugitive task force in the state of Michigan, and the Wayne County Sheriff's Office is proud of its contribution because we, the Wayne County Sheriff's Office and the Detroit Police Department, are stronger together. Thank you so much.
We're going to switch gears a little bit and talk about our problems that we have with the case backlog in the court system. And without getting too wordy with it, just understand that COVID brought about a number of different things that no one anticipated. One of them was the problems that we had with the court systems, in some instances having a backlog of felony cases, weapons cases in particular, and people were simply just not being held accountable for the crimes that they were committing for a variety of reasons. When you look at what the impact of COVID was with folks working from home, systems that we have become accustomed to changing and processes changing, we found ourselves in a place where you had all of this good work going, but the court system on the back end was just not working, was not producing the way that it needed to produce. The Wayne County Executive, Warren Evans, Mayor Duggan, and other leaders came together. The Wayne County Prosecutor, Kim Worthy, came to the table with the idea of problem solving. This project was led and is currently being led by Rob Shinsky out of the mayor's office. We call this lovingly the Shinsky Project. And he has worked very, very hard to assist in addressing some of the backlog issues that have come up. At this time, I would like for Brian Reinhardt to come up, and as he comes up, he's from the Wayne County Executive, and I don't know why I'm forgetting his title. Is it Deputy? Chief of Staff. All right, he gets promoted so quickly. I just wonder. Is Brian here? Oh, Brian, please come on up. But as he comes up, I just want to also let you know that when he was with the Sheriff's Department, he was also the lead with the FAST project and running that for a number of years, which resulted in a tremendous amount of arrests, making our city safer. So with that, Brian Reinhardt.
Good afternoon. I'll be brief. Again, Brian Reinhardt, Chief of Staff to Wayne County Executive Warren Evans. After 5 decades of public service, Wayne County Executive Warren Evans certainly knows a thing or two about, what works and what doesn't. And teamwork, coordination, and collaboration is certainly near and dear to his heart. And so when the opportunity presented itself, recognizing our place in the Wayne County and the ecosystem, how we can help, County Executive said, get to work, and we did. So we're incredibly proud of this partnership. Chief, your team, your leadership team, it's incredible work that you're doing, and again, we're very proud. Take this opportunity to recognize the amazing work done by the community organizations. Without question, what you're doing out there every single day is certainly contributing to the reductions of violent crime, and we recognize that, and thank you for your service. And going into the new year, Wayne County remains committed to utilizing whatever resources we have to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. At this time, I'd like to bring up Third Circuit Court Chief Judge Farsard to talk about the impressive work that they are doing reducing the pending gun case backlog. Judge?
Thank you.
Oh, all right.
Thank you so much. Good afternoon. I am Judge Patricia Perez Farsard, and I could not be more honored to be here or more proud to be part of this partnership. The Chief talked about gratitude, and I am here on behalf of the Wayne County Circuit Court to express our gratitude. We are so grateful for our partners here and our partners in the community in making our goals happen. Talked about 4,000 case backload, and I want to talk a little bit about that. We are the largest and busiest court in the state, and so we had 4 times the cases of any other court. And to look at a court that is closed down by COVID for the better part of 2 years so that cases cannot be tried is a looming danger to the community. And to be here today in victory to celebrate rather than what we saw as a possible horrible danger to the community that those 2 years took from us is something that we are very, very grateful for. And I am very, very proud of our court team in what they've done. Our judges, our administrative team, and all of our employees worked hard together and partnered with this group in order to look at that backlog of 4,000 cases. And we expected that to take at least 4 to 5 years to look at that and to be up to speed on those cases. And instead, today, we only have 500 of those original cases left. That is something that we never thought was possible. And so we're grateful not only to everyone here, but also to our community, because we expected that with COVID and with the danger of COVID, that we would have a very difficult time. When we looked at 2022, we were only able to try a little over 200 cases. We tried about 4 times that much in 2023. And we needed jurors who came in as judges of the facts to bring in verdicts and to show our community that we are trying cases, we are back full force. We, in fact, had a clearance rate of 133%. So we cleared many more cases than came in, and we are part of this group, and we are very grateful to everyone who helped us get to our goal of meeting the safety needs of the community by trying our cases. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chief Judge. Also, I want to mention Judge McConico, who could not be here today. He mentioned the work that they're doing with their backlog as well. 36th District Court has an 80% reduction in pending cases, which is pretty incredible. 80%. So I want to make sure that he could not be here, but I want to make sure that extend our thank you to him. It's important as you look at this partnership and all the work that we're doing, those who victimize our city, our community, are held accountable, and it's getting that system back up and running. It's imperative for this entire process to work. Hopefully we don't have to use it as much. People make better decisions, as U.S. Attorney talked about, giving people options with those peace nicks where you can get a driver's license, you can get a job, you can get other opportunities. But we're going to be unapologetic about holding you accountable if you victimize someone in this community. As Jimmy Deere indicated, you use a weapon in our community, you're going to be held accountable, and the systems are going to work to ensure that you're off the street. So we need to make better decisions. At this time, we're excited about the early returns on our CVI, our Community Violence Initiative, led by Deputy Mayor, my former partner, retired Assistant Chief Todd Bettison, now Deputy Mayor. Have him come on up and talk a little bit about early returns on CVI.
Yeah, thank you, Chief. And I just want to say, this is really special, especially with the fact that we got the best community in Detroit. Our community supports the Detroit Police Department, supports law enforcement, and they show up. And so in my previous career as First Assistant Chief and throughout the ranks, whenever I call community, whether it was whatever group, whether it was Radio Patrol, Detroit 300, the People's Action, or whomever, they always showed up. And they would stand with whatever chief it would be at the press conferences, and the thing would be enough is enough. Enough with the violence, enough with the gun violence. We're coming together and we're going to do something about it. But the thing about it is, I could never even so much offer them a gas card per se. And so they did it out the goodness of their hearts, and they have always been here, and our neighborhood police officers know that as well. But thanks to the American Rescue Plan Act funds, the federal funds, the Joe Biden administration, and carving out a caveat for community violence intervention and creating that space, it gave the mayor, it gave our administration an opportunity to be able to fund community violence intervention. It's really groups that are out there to create wraparound services and help out with mediation when it comes to gun violence and violent type crimes. And so with that, like I said, our community group supported us, and whether it was supporting for police officers' raises, they were like, give the officers more money, we support that. Whether it was for technology, you heard about Shot Spotter. We had community groups out there supporting Shot Spotter. But one of the things that they said is, hey man, we need you to support us too. We're shot stoppers, and so Shot Spotter may spot a shot, but put us community folks out there so that we can stop shots. And so I talked to the mayor about it. I said, it's a unique concept. They say they're the shot stoppers. He said, Todd, that's what we're going to call it. And so with that, we started our Shot Stoppers program, and it kicked off the first quarter, which was in July. And so the first quarter, we didn't really expect a lot of results because they had to build up infrastructure. But this second quarter that we're in right now is really showing some promising results. And so out of the 6 groups that were selected as far as community violence intervention groups to lead the effort in the city of Detroit with designated hotspot areas in the city. I can tell you right now, we're seeing some promising results from 3 of them. And in the second quarter, compared to last year, 3 of them are 50% down when it comes to shootings in their areas. But one group in particular, Force Detroit, led by Aaliyah Harvey Quinn, who's here, and I'll be bringing her up to talk about a little bit more. Her results are really, amazing at this point. And so let's give it up for Force Detroit. And so if this trend continues, we expect to see even more of a reduction in 2024. And so I'm not drawing conclusions at this point, but many hands make light work. And so with that, Aaliyah Harvey Quinn, come up and tell us a little bit about what you're doing to reduce violence in your area, Northwest Detroit.
First of all, the applause should go to the team. The Force Detroit team is led in partnership. DeJuan Kennedy is one of the core partners. He has really put the work on his back, showed up and showed out, and he has chosen staff people that are equally dedicated. So I would be remiss if I didn't start off by saying thank you to the whole team. We got a brother named Terrence, a sister named Sierra. We got Andron, we got Meech, we got Beto, Carisha, and then we've got a strong administrative team. We got Kayla, we got Kai, Bridget. I am so grateful to show up and work side by side with each of you all. I want to start by just sharing a quote, and I'll keep it super brief, but there's a quote that says, goes something like, the child that doesn't experience the love of the village will burn it down to feel its warmth. And CVI is an opportunity to feel that warmth. CVI is a public health harm reduction strategy in which we partner with people in the community who are driving violence and help them reimagine their lives. We intervene in violent scenarios just like you would intervene at a bar with your friend, snatch their keys from them, and give them an opportunity to go home in a Lyft that you pay for. CVI works much the same way. It is relationship driven. And so when we say we partner, those partnerships extend to the people who are driving violence. They are choosing to put down guns. They are choosing the mental health opportunities that we're giving them. But we have to give them more. We have to be able to offer those basic needs opportunities reliably. So some of the things that we've done to reduce violence, we've been able to relocate people in an incident of violence, which means that there's that people can walk away without fear of retaliation, right? There's a program that we run in which community members who've experienced violence get a small, steady income. And hopefully this allows for people to meet the needs that have come after the incident. We offer cognitive behavioral therapy. We offer intensive mentorship, case management. And so these are the things that offer us an opportunity to partner with the community members at the center of violence, to partner with them towards their transformation. I'm excited and honored to stand here and proud to stand beside my team in thanking the leadership of the city for listening to city leaders, for partnering with us, for investing in the work of grassroots groups who have long stood against violence and have long brokered opportunities for peace without being able to receive economic dignity for that work. So we're just grateful and we're honored. We're looking forward to the day we commit to the long term for CVI. and we'll be here.
Thank you, Aaliyah Harvey Quinn, for that. We know we cannot arrest our way out of crime. Innovative strategies like this are game changers, so thank you. So whether it be Aaliyah Harvey Quinn, Teferi Brent, Dura Woods, Zoe, and others that are committed to our community, we recognize that community is number one. We can't do what we do without our community. At this time, I would like for Mr. Alvin Stokes to come up to say a couple brief words. He is the leader of our citywide Community Relations Council.
Thank you, Chief. Again, my name is Alvin Stokes. I am the president of Citywide Citizens Police Community Relations. Thank you, Madam Attorney. When she came to me and asked me to be a part of this team, I was more than happy to be a part of this team. A lot of times you don't get to ask, you're not asked as a community leader to rub elbows with the big shots. That's a privilege to me. And to be a part of this team and the excellent job that you're doing to help the city of Detroit, we greatly appreciate it. We see it in the community. We look at the response time. Nobody talks about the response time that is down low that has been in the city of Detroit. Chief, we want to thank you for these men and women that's sitting here up front, the neighborhood police officers. They do an outstanding job in the community because they're the ones that we're the first ones to run to. And they're there for us anytime that we ask. Mayor, we thank you for your leadership. It's just awesome to be part of this team. And like I said, we see it in the community. We're grateful, and we still got work to do. So thank you very much, and we'll continue to be a part of this.
This time I'd like for Quincy Smith, the Director of Ceasefire, to come up and talk a little bit about the work that they're doing.
All right, what a day. This is exciting. I'm excited. 8 years I've been with Ceasefire, and I don't think I've seen this level of synergy, this level of collaboration, and that just doesn't happen. It comes because there's great leadership. So thank you, Chief. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for that. Absolutely, please. So Ceasefire is currently with the Detroit Health Department. We have to look at violence from the lens of public health. It is a public health issue, right? When we address issues and finding out and figure out what are the root causes of violence, then we can do something about it. I'm reminded of a conversation I was having with a colleague of mine who's in this work. He's part of one of the shot stopper groups. He was having a conversation with one of his guys, and he asked him, he said, what do you think is one of the solutions, right, to reducing gun violence? His response was very profound. He said, abundance. I said, abundance? I said, what do you think he meant by that? If we just had access to resources, right? Access to opportunities, right? Maybe we can really start to turn this thing around, and that's what's been happening. But we got to continue. Flood the streets with opportunity. Flood the streets with resources. Flood the streets with job opportunities, right? Once we do that, things will continue to turn, and that's where my hope is. So I'm excited to be a part. Ceasefire just plays a small part. When the shot stopper thing came, some people say, well, how is that going to work with Ceasefire? They're already here doing the work. Well, we were intentional about building a partnership with every single shot stopper group. So we meet regularly, right? How do we cross-organize, right? How do we provide resources for these families, right? And we're doing it together, and that's what it takes. So we're glad to be a part, and we're going to continue this work.
So we are drawn to a close. I promise you, media, we're going to leave time for questions. I got one more presenter, but I told you that today is a day of thank yous to everyone for what we're doing, and the challenge will be even greater in the coming year or in this year because we're competing against ourselves in our work. Now it really gets real for us that we're going to have to exceed what we've already accomplished. So it's important that we thank everyone. And on that same vein, I want to thank Stephanie Young. I think I saw her say Rep. Stephanie Young for her work. We're going to have the opportunity of adding, hopefully, we're going to do 100 more officers, but we're going to get 25 officers due in large part to some state funding that we've received. And so I want to thank her for that. I want to thank Director Patillo, who's hired all those officers. Raise your hand, Director Patillo. We are hiring, by the way. we are hiring for several positions, both sworn and civilian. So see Director Patillo as you leave if you or someone you love would like to join this amazing department. As I invite D-Win to come up, the mental health crisis, and I'm sorry, Mr. Doa, I said D-Win and Doa, trying to get through it. But Mr. Doa, another great partner, and as he comes up, I'll explain his work. He's with Detroit Wayne Integrated Mental Health Authority, and he'll correct that because I know I messed it up. But the bottom line is he's been a tremendous partner for us with D-Win and assisting us and training up our officers. Mental health continues to be a crisis in our community. It's something by its very nature that is unpredictable, so it's not immeasurable. You can't measure the impact of a mental health crisis in a community. Here's what we do know. We do know that violence in a community causes trauma, and that trauma will be realized through the actions of those people who are traumatized. That's real. We also know that those who are dealing with mental health crises such as paranoid schizophrenia and other disorders will react. They'll react to various stimuli. They will react to things that are happening to them. As a mental health professional myself, we see this as a crisis that we know we have to address, and it's something that has landed in the laps of law enforcement. It's not something we want. Even though I'm a therapist, I want to be a police chief. I don't want to be in the mental health business, but it's something that our officers are dealing with every single day. When you look at our numbers, our co-response unit that we've developed about a year ago has responded to 2,770 runs regarding mental health. Those 2,770 are just a small piece of what the other officers in the department have handled. The other officers have handled more than 14,000. These are people who are not, they're all trained, but these are officers who just have the generalized training in mental health, which is in addition to our mental health co-response. 14,000 mental health calls for service in 2023. And so working with Mr. Doa, come on up, he has enabled us to train all of our officers first and foremost, and to become one of the most trained agencies in the country in law enforcement to address the mental health crisis. Not where we want to be. Certainly law enforcement, we're police officers. We need to be about policing. And like I say oftentimes, we need mental health professionals doing mental health work. We need police officers doing police work. Using a police officer to do mental health work is like hiring a plumber to do your roof. Might know a little something about roofing, but is not a roofer, right? We need a roofer for roofing, a plumber for plumbing. So we've got great officers that's got great training, but I'd much rather have Mr. Doa and his team take that project over for us permanently, and he's been a great partner. Come on up and say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Chief, and many thanks, of course, to the mayor, the city council president, of course, who's here, and many others in our law enforcement community. As a former state, federal prosecutor, I know a few things when it comes to the law enforcement side, but certainly the work that I get to do now from the mental health perspective has given me, a whole new look as to how policing in modern day truly works. And when we talk about prevention and we talk about resources, it's all about linking folks to services as well. Don't get me wrong, there are the trigger pullers who are out here. There are the folks who are making mayhem and causing mayhem in our communities. But there are also those who are in very much need of help. And so at the Detroit Wayne Integrated Health Network, we provide those services, crisis services, whether it comes to mobile services where we are meeting folks within the neighborhoods to provide those services, or having our clinicians who are working within the dispatch centers of DPD. My late wife was a 20-year veteran of the Detroit Police Department. So again, I too understand what it means for our men and women to make it home safely to their families, but also recognizing that folks who you come in contact with, they also want a chance to make it home safely to their families. And I think by having that CIT training when it comes to crisis intervention training does give us an opportunity to do just that. But just as the chief and many of our partners have said, this is truly a partnership. It has been said that nothing that has any success connected to it has been done by just one person. And I think this is just an example of showing how that collaboration has truly worked. As the U.S. Attorney, my good friend Don Eisen, has said, we still have a long ways to go, but can you imagine the path that we've set in making sure that we can make it to that mountaintop? And it may take us a while to get there, but we sure will. And so, bless you, by the way. For many of our families, men and women and children who are in our community, let's all of us try to make it a safe community for all of us. And to our men and women all out there, thank you so much for all that you do. We are so appreciative of your work. And if you don't get that heartfelt thanks starting at the beginning of this year, please know that we recognize your work, and thank you again. Thank you so much, Chief.
All right, the time that at least most of our media partners have been waiting on, we'll take any questions that you may have at this time.
Mr. Chief, we've heard all this great news, but what I haven't heard, and I hate to put this on you, Taj, but since the mayor left out, we've got to figure out how we not lose Chief White. Y'all can laugh if you want to, but generally when it comes to success and a black man, another man trying to get him, I'd like to say thank you to the chief because, number one, he has been in every side of Detroit, in the communities and for the communities. And let's give Todd Bettison, the deputy mayor, a hand because what y'all don't know, on the 11th floor, he's welcomed every neighborhood partner possible. I've been invited to some of the meetings, not to the other ones. But I'd like to really know, my first question is, I think the contract is coming up. What are we doing to make sure, I thought it was a 2-year contract. That is related to the topic, because if we don't have him, we don't have the security.
I'll make it real easy. Chief White is a Detroiter. He came back to the city of Detroit. He loves being here, and look at the chief. He's here. And so we're partners. He's committed, and, you can just look at the chief. He's here. He's in it for the long run.
All right. Then my next phase of question is with the city council and the mayor's office. What are we doing about, and I know you got a job program, but Martin Luther King and many said half a crime issue is unemployment issue. In the issue of mental health, we still have the employment that is lacking, and the national census saying that Michigan is racist, and that's why we're not getting a lot of the conventions. What are we doing for the overtone? And thank you, Madam Attorney General, U.S. Attorney, I'm sorry, I always mess it up. What are we doing about the employment side of the criminal elements that if we get them out of trouble, who's going to hire them?
We're second chance friendly, and so that's what it's all about. And so you were at some of our press conferences where we had our jump start. We talk about Detroit for Life initiative, our $100 million scholarship, Learn to Earn. And so our workforce development program in the city of Detroit is second to none. And we're continuously pushing that message out so that everyone has access. And so if anyone out there needs employment within the sound of my voice as well, check out the city of Detroit's website, detroitmi.gov, Detroit for Life. You have opportunities in the city of Detroit because you're a Detroiter that you typically won't have anywhere else. You can even go to college for free in the city of Detroit based off the Detroit Promise. So if you can't do it in Detroit, you can't do it nowhere.
Thank you.
Chief White, Ryan Marshall, WWJ News Radio 950. You've got a lot of great partners here, and you've mentioned a lot of great things. But I would love to speak a little bit more on how helpful the extra money the department has received to give pay raises and offer higher salaries, and how that number has increased the amount of people applying to be officers, how that's helped your efforts to stop violent crime here in the city.
It's tremendous, and thanks for asking that question. It really kind of hit me in the face, so to speak. One day I was working with a couple of young officers that work with me, one standing behind you, by the way. And, these are young officers who've been here just a few years, young families. He's got 2 young children, and he's working with the chief and thinking about leaving. And so I asked the question, why? I love the department. I love the opportunities. I love all the different things that we can do here that you can't do in smaller departments. The economics just don't work for me and my family. And so when we sat down and we came to the table, we didn't just come and pull a number out of the air and say, we need this much money. What we did was we looked at the people who were leaving our agency, and we looked at where they were going, and then we measured ourselves against them. And it was a significant difference in being able to compete. Brought that to the mayor. He says yes immediately. And we put some real responsible numbers. We're good steward of taxpayers' dollars. We put some responsible numbers together. The deputy mayor, who was at that time the assistant chief, was highly engaged in that. other partners, AC LaValle, AC Fitzgerald, and we got with the unions and we came together with a very respectable and responsible product, which had a unanimous approval by City Council who knew also what we were up against. And so when you were able to do that, and then immediately you get 60 police officers, well, actually I've got over 100 that wanted to come back. We've hired 60. Some won't be able to for various reasons, and some are still in process. And when they come back, the first thing they said, this is where I wanted to be all along. We just didn't have the economics in line.
Absolutely. And then my second question is, violent crime has come down significantly. And on the heels of that great news, on New Year's Day, you hear news of an apparent murder-suicide.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit more, give us an update on that, where that case stands and what may have started that?
I like the way you slipped that in, knowing that you're supposed to stay focused. Well, let me just say this. Open investigation, but I think it does speak to the mental health crisis, right? I mean, when you can't, it was domestic, and, so it's got a problem-solving nexus to it. It's got a violence nexus to it. It's got a number of things that we're dealing with every single day that is a problem for our community. Domestic violence affects every single person, regardless of socioeconomics. It's a real issue in our community. We've been impacted by in the police department, and I'm sure that everyone in this room knows at least one person that's been a victim of domestic violence. So it's a real issue. We're going to be out front this year on it and continue to do everything we can. We're hiring social workers and other teammates to help combat this problem, to help our victims get the services that they need so it doesn't end up resulting in a murder-suicide. We'll talk more about that at that particular press release, but I don't want to get into that right now. But all right, thank you,
Chief.
Mike Duffy, Channel 7. We were just talking a little bit about investments. Over the course of the past couple of years, we've relied a lot on ARPA dollars and things like that to maintain this funding. What kind of funding do we still need to secure to make this continue?
Well, that's what keeps us up all night. I mean, we lose a lot of sleep thinking about what next, right? I mean, we're confident. We don't move day by day. We move year by year in our strategies. And so we know that we're going to be okay for the next couple of years. But as we get closer to that time, we'll adjust. I'm very happy that we're going to be hiring at least another 100 to 125 officers this year. That 100's going on the street. 25 of that 125, 10 are going to mental health co-response, 15 are going to NPOs to help these tired folks out. So they'll give them some relief. So we know how we're going to strategically deploy. Our attrition rate is really slowing significantly because of the raises, which is great, which is what we want. We want veteran officers. But we're prepared. I mean, we're not going to get caught napping on what we need to do for the future. Like I said, we move in year by year. What are we doing next? And we know what the next 3 years when the federal ARPA dollars go away, what they look like.
Okay, and aside from law enforcement, we were talking about the public health initiatives, the community violence initiative. How much do you want to invest in that, and what kind of results are you seeing? We touched upon some of them.
Well, data. I mean, right? The data's early returns on the data is really encouraging. And so, as Ms. Aaliyah Harvey Quinn spoke on, we're going to be looking at what they're doing at Force Detroit and others, not just them, but looking at their early returns. We see some promising results, and as we get closer to looking at long-term strategies, we'll look at their performance and see what works best. We don't want to arrest folks. We have to arrest folks based on the actions that they do. Less people making bad decisions means less arrests. And if we can encourage some of the behavior that we're seeing, some of the changes where CVI is showing up and getting people resources and looking at some of those socioeconomic issues to avert crime, we're all for that. We're all supportive of that.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Chief, Malachi Barrett from Bridge Detroit. Going off that last question, there were 3 CVI groups that had shown some pretty promising results. Can you tell me more about the other 2, Deputy Mayor, I guess?
Deputy Mayor, would you mind?
The other 3.
Of the 3, one of them Force Detroit, right? So
yeah, so it's a total of 6, and so you're asking specifically about the other 2 that had good results. So
yeah, that's 50% reduction of
the people's community, the People's Community Action, and also Detroit Friends and Family.
Okay,
and so yeah, it's very promising at this point. So looking forward to seeing more.
Chief, can you tell us more about the spring deployment plan when that takes effect, what that's going to look like?
Yeah, so it's our crowd management plan and strategy. It involves everything, and it's not just downtown; it's all around town. We have parks in every community, and we saw an uptick in people utilizing those parks last year. We know that in large part that was due to really people feeling that the COVID had ended and starting to do things like they normally do again. This year, as I indicated earlier, we have a spring deployment, we have a mid-spring deployment, we have an early summer deployment, and then we have a mid-summer deployment. We're going right to the summer deployment in the spring. We're not even going to not do that. I mean, it doesn't make sense. We see, like with Taylor Swift and all the other events we had last year, now this year we're going to have the draft, and we're going to have a number of things that we have to get in front of. And so that deployment, which will not impact our neighborhood patrols, will be much earlier and comprehensive based on what the data tells us. We're going to do a few other things too. Some programs I talked to the U.S. Attorney about that drives crime down in particular areas. I'm not going to disclose what that is yet, but it's really a hands-off, just visibility approach. We're going to be trying that in strategic areas that you'll be seeing around town. We'll talk more about it later.
And if I can, when does that take effect exactly?
I'm not going to tell you. It's going to be early.
Good afternoon. My name is Jaja Hubbard. Yeah, I said it radio. And my question is, how are we going to partner with Detroit Public Schools Community District, seeing that a lot of our youth have also increased in crime and having access to guns, as well as what is going to be your policy with some of the pawn shops? Because one of the things that I've been noticing with a lot of the families and youth, they have access through the pawn shops they do very little background checks or anything of that nature, and they're allowing young people to obtain those weapons. And then my final suggestion is, can we create a CVI directory for families and communities where people can access these different organizations and they can call them, and so they have a direct line of communication and all the numbers, emails of everybody that's in this group that's doing the great things that we're doing in the community. So the CVI directory, how can we partner with Detroit Public Schools Community District, and what can we do about the pawn shops that are allowing our youth to obtain those weapons?
So I'll answer the Detroit Public School answer, and I'll ask DM to join me up here for the rest. We're very interested in doing that. We already have our NPOs that are engaged in our schools. As you may be aware, the DPS has a police department. They train with us. We offer them any assistance through our real-time crime center. And we're very interested in getting some attention of our kids in a positive way early on. So I'll be sitting down with the chief of DPSCD early spring. We meet once a month. Well, once every couple months. It hasn't been once a month recently. And we talk about some issues that they have, but we have not built out a comprehensive engagement strategy as of yet. But
Can I be a part of that?
I don't know who you are, ma'am.
Well, I'm Jaja Hubbard, and I'm a mother. My son graduated from Cass Technical High School. I'm also a DPS alumni. I raised my brothers and sisters. My mother has 7 children. My father was in prison. My brothers were in prison, and so are my uncles. So I think I have experience.
Yes, your credentials are strong. All right.
And then the CVI directory as well.
And so the CVI directory, one of the things that we did when we created the program that's really unique, and I think that's going to ultimately lead to success, is the fact that it was really driven by the groups. And so they're in specific areas of the city, 6 specific zones, and each group covers approximately 3 to 5 square miles, and they only cover and work within that area and are doing outreach there. So actually just a directory overall to the community, they're only working within their area. So I don't know if that would be the most appropriate, but I would love to sit down with you to see what we can do per se to create something that would work specifically for that area. And based off the pilot and based off success, we can see continued success where the mayor has committed, and we're committed to expanding that. And so we're in the proof of concept right now. But like I said, it's looking very, very promising. And so Ms. Alea Harvey Quinn, also who's a national thought leader on it as well, you two can connect and have a conversation, because what I did was, and the mayor said, Todd, do not get in the way. They're the experts when it comes to this lane, because I would have policed it up probably too much. And so putting you directly with the CVI experts in the community violence intervention space, I think will be ultimately the best thing.
Awesome. And then the task force for the pawn shops so that we can prevent our young people from accessing these weapons so easily.
I'd love to sit down with you and the chief as well so that we can work on strategies there also.
Thank you.
All right.
Hi, Chief White. I'm Brianna Rice from Michigan Radio, and I just have one question. I wondered if you could talk a little bit about the less lethal weapons and some of those things that were introduced this year, how often they were used, and how those came into play this year.
Yeah, I don't have the data. I think we have one deployment of one of the less lethals. Well, less lethals encompass a number of different weapons. I think you're speaking of the mental health co-response tools that are less lethal. You're not talking about tasers and things like that.
Yes, just the mental health ones that you announced.
I think we have one deployment. I'll have to check that. Last report I read was one. It was born out of doing everything we possibly can and not have to use lethal weapons. We're very sensitive to not overpromising anything with that weapon system. Certainly when an officer is encountering fatal force, generally speaking, that's met with force, right? I mean, when someone is trying to shoot an officer, we would not be able to necessarily deploy these weapons, and it wouldn't be reasonable for an officer to be in a gunfight with a less lethal. And I think that some have thought that that would replace those weapon systems. What we identified, however, and with the assistance of DWIN and others, is what are some of the best things that we can do? Train the officers with mental health co-response, how to address certain things. There are things such as stimuli that happens that triggers those with mental health conditions behavior. Believe it or not, even lighting systems, having a red and blue light is a trigger for some. So with that vehicle, some of those vehicles that we deploy with our mental health co-response, they have a green light pattern option, but they can flip to a green light as opposed to red and blue. Doesn't sound logical to us necessarily, but those who are in crisis, we recognize that it has an impact. So the officers are highly trained. They're also, those vehicles and those officers are deploying this less lethal package, as we call it, which are the rubber rounds. We have something called bowler wrap, which if a person is charging at you, you're able to basically use not minimizing it and trying to make it sound funny, but they can deploy what would look like a Spider-Man's deployment, where you would get this net that comes at you and would stop the charge of the person and wraps around them. It's pretty fascinating to see. We did use it once. But again, you've got some folks who are non-responsive to that because of their condition. We've had the most success with the bowler wrap, and we're going to be looking to City Council to expand that particular tool to all the vehicles, not just the mental health co-response.
Thank you.
Miss Chief, just a minute. We have this young lady in front, and then also, Mr. Did you want to go last, or did you want to go right after? We have one more. I'm sorry, just for simple time. Were you next, and then you, ma'am, or would you like to go? Okay, come on, ma'am. And then after you, and so just right after. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Hi.
Thank you so much for allowing me to come here and say something. I'm just a regular citizen, and I work with community organizations. My name is Gwendolyn Jones. My great Councilman Fred Urhall is sitting over there. He's always very helpful with helping us out with everything we need. The reason that I'm here is just to emphasize that I believe car radio patrol, it should be, or I hope it can be, a top priority for citywide radio patrol. And I'm hoping that we can put an emphasis on that at all of the district Zoom meetings for recruitment, because, and we can make announcements, radio and TV, because I work with Maya Gracie. I'm just going to start. I'm going to be beginning working with her. And I feel it's a great emphasis. I'm really happy about all the reduction in the crime rate, but I feel that the citizens can work on the inside. You're working on the outside, doing everything great. We can come together on the inside and make it a citywide project. So I'm hoping that the police department can put more emphasis on that. Maybe even, discuss radio patrol at each zone meeting, discuss radio patrol at all districts meetings, emphasize the need for all residents to get involved in some way to allow for rotation of schedules. increase participation in the radio patrol, increase pay.
Okay.
Pay increase.
So,
And
ma'am,
also radio and TV announcements.
so thank you. Thank you, first of all, for what you're doing. I do want you to know that I hear you, but I'd like to have a single-purpose discussion with you on this topic. But in the interest of time for everyone else that's here, I'd like to hear from the reporters so I can get our invited guests back to their day jobs. but listen, I'm being very serious. We really do appreciate our radio patrol, and I agree with you. We must recruit. There's just not enough of them. Sarge, Jordan, if you could get her information, set up a meeting in my office so we can discuss it in greater detail.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. If we can just exclusively go to media now.
Okay, Chief, thanks a lot for doing this question for us. Victor Williams here with Local 4. You have a lot of longtime Detroiters who are, of course, happy that the numbers are going down in the right direction. What would you say to them for actually waiting out this long and sticking with the city?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for sticking and staying with the city. Your voice matters. Your safety matters. We care, and we appreciate it. And we certainly appreciate them sticking and staying. And again, you've heard from a very passionate U.S. attorney. I've been doing this a long time. I've never had this type of relationship with the U.S. Attorney's Office, taking nothing away from anybody else, but someone who knows our city, someone who believes in our city, someone who has dealt with the tragedies that can come from losing someone, not to get too far in the weeds on that, in the city. The passion there speaks daily. So I'm very encouraged by it, and I'm happy that they stayed.
Thank you, Chief.
All right, thank you, Chief. All right, thank you, everybody.